We're going to kick off in reverse order. Take us through them.
Well, I think Robbie Fowler, and you know, this is the controversy, because you know it's Robbie Fowler or Steven Gerrard. That's the debate for the last few days in my head. And I've gone with Robbie Fowler, and I've gone with my heart. You know,
you have him in at number 3 on this list of your top 5.
You have it.
You have, apparently.
Oh, I have. Yeah. I may have moved him, actually.
I'm
making this up as I go along.
So Robbie Fowler, it's a really interesting one. Probably could have been Liverpool's greatest player of all time.
Yeah, and that's why I think that's why I have this debate that Gerrard did it, and Robbie Fowler. It's kind of like a George Best thing without the disintegration of his personal life thing. That he was kind of done in his mid-20s. And I remember him scoring 5 goals in one of his first games for Liverpool. Might have been against Fulham in a cup match, a League Cup match. And he was a kid, he was really, really young. And you just thought, this guy. I mean, he's definitely the most natural finisher I've ever seen. I think Steve McManaman said that he's the best player he's ever played with. Yeah. And, it is easy to forget just how good he was. And when Liverpool sold him, it broke his heart. I mean, I watched him playing for Leeds and watched him playing for Manchester City. It was just like watching a ghost wander around the pitch. His heart was broken. He only ever wanted to play for Liverpool. I also liked the other parts of his personality, the support for the Dockers, the Liverpool Dockers, when he pulled up his shirt after scoring a goal. And they fined him, and he said, I don't care. He had a personality. He had a personality. And then there was this famous match against Arsenal when he was through on goal and David Seaman came out, dived at his feet. Fowler went over him. Referee awarded a penalty. Fowler chased the referee and tried to persuade him not to give the penalty. And then Fowler missed the penalty. Jason McAteer scored the rebound. But it was always that thing of, I always wondered, did he do it on purpose, But the Liverpool fans played it, they used to call him God. And, fans tend to exaggerate the value of players, but to me, when he was playing, they kind of got that just about right.
Yeah, 183 goals, I think, is what I had here, which is some way off Liverpool's top scorer of all time. He's in at number 3 in your list, so we're going to bounce about a bit here, but we'll go to number 5.
Okay.
Who is Kevin Keegan.
Kevin Keegan, yeah. I mean, Kevin Keegan...
Controversial, this one.
Yeah, because Kevin Keegan, people who don't remember the 70s would kind of see Kevin Keegan as a bit of a joke figure because of what happened at Newcastle, because of what happened when he was England manager, when he announced one game, I think they lost to Germany 1-0 at Wembley, the first qualifying match of the European Championships, I think it was, or the World Cup for 2002, he announced, I'm not up to this job, and walked out. So I think people of a certain vintage only really remember the sort of joke Kevin Keegan figure, the manager who lost his bottle in the Championship.
But even the player, even almost by his own admission, was almost more of a grafter than natural talent.
I never really bought that. I mean, Keegan always said that he didn't have the talent of other players, so he had to work 5 times harder. Keegan had huge amount of talent, enormous amount of talent. And he was the start of it. Shankly bought him as a midfielder and immediately saw that, he was Toshak's partner. That's how he was used. And, Liverpool, no question, winning their first European Cup in 77, Keegan played a huge part in that. But then he went off to Germany and played for Hamburg, a fashionable German club, and was European Player of the Year 2 years in a row, playing for Hamburg, and then brought them to the 1980 European Cup final, and he was their star. So I always took that with a pinch of salt when Keegan said he didn't have the talent of other players. He was incredibly talented.
He's number 5 on the list. We've mentioned number 4 already, John Barnes, worth recapping on, and crafty, slightly at odds, we mentioned a bit earlier in the show, with the general sort of player at that time, but his style was just so attractive.
Yeah, and for me, that's the best Liverpool team I ever saw, that team with the late 1980s, 88, 89, 90. And John Barnes was the player who made it all work. I don't really buy into this assists thing. People are obsessed with assists now. I don't recognise them as a thing. But if you counted up his assists, I think he was probably responsible for half of Ray Houghton's goals during that era, half of John Aldridge's, and probably most of Peter Beardsley's as well. He was just involved in everything. And as Ray Houghton said, he was unplayable. You know, players shrank, you know, like fullbacks shrank when they came up against him.
Yeah. So that's number 4. Number 3, Robbie Fowler. In at number 2, so the top 2, this list gets more controversial as it goes. So in at number 2 is the greatest Liverpool goal scorer of all time, essentially.
Ian Rush, yeah. Yeah, Ian Rush. You know, I followed Liverpool throughout my childhood, which was the late 70s and the 80s. And the main difference between Liverpool and United during that time was Ian Rush. I mean, that was the main difference. Like, United had great players, but they didn't have Ian Rush. They didn't have, I think one season Rush got 48 goals in a season, which was incredible, but they didn't have a consistent finisher like that. And he could score goals from all kinds of goals, like headers, left foot, right foot. And then his partnership with Dalglish was one of the greatest attacking partnerships of all time. That Dalglish adjusted his game to suit Rush, and playing these balls through. You know, just so many of Rush's goals in that era were Dalglish playing him through, Rush staying just onside, and beating the keeper in a one-on-one. There was just no question when he was in a one-on-one with the keeper where that ball was going. Yeah,
incredible record. 346 goals. Like you talk about Robbie Fowler's 183.
Yeah, but the difference is Robbie Fowler's didn't amount to anything, whereas Rush's amounted to league titles, European Cups.
Yeah. Number 1 is the great man himself. 13 years, European Cup winner. He was that. 13 years and a barrel full of trophies and medals and legacies. And
Kenny Dalglish, yeah. I mean, he was Liverpool. I mean, to me, he is the personification of that great era. You know, that as a kid I thought was going to go on forever. That Liverpool team. And I remember as a kid crying when Kevin Keegan was leaving Liverpool, because I thought this was the end of something. Like, I was about 6 years old and my dad said, wait till you see what's coming in next, and they bought Kenny Dalglish from Celtic to replace him. And he'd already had a really successful career at Celtic when he wasn't young, he wasn't 21 years of age. And he was just superb, and I mean, he changed his game as well. I mean, his goals, if you watch a highlights reel of his goals, they're just outstanding goals.
Incredible.
And he never really got the credit, because Scotland always underperformed in World Cups. He was never talked about in the same breath as Cruyff, for instance, But he was every bit as good. One of his specialities was curling the ball in. Like, he could put a great bend on the ball. And then, like I said, when he played with Rush later on, he adjusted his game and just became the provider. Like, he played behind Rush and just essentially served him up opportunities, served him up what we now call big assists guy. But nowadays he'd be called, people would talk about his great assists ability, but it was so much more than just assists. He made that Liverpool team work. Yeah,
it's interesting, at times controversial list that
I haven't put Stephen Gerrard in,
You haven't put Stevie G in there. As with any great list, it's what's not in it is generally what comes to talking about. No Stevie G, no Graham Souness, maybe less controversial. Suarez is getting a lot of love in some of our interactions.
It was so short with Suarez, and again, it didn't lead to anything. There was no, they didn't win the league that year. But for me, Suarez, it was 2 seasons really. It was 2 seasons.
It's a list of great Liverpool players as opposed to great players
who were great for Liverpool. And Stevie G, because I will be asked to explain it. I mean, I always liked John Giles' assessment of Gerrard, which was that he was a player who was capable of great things rather than a great player, and he frustrated me as much as he amazed me as a player. I mean, the famous Chelsea match in 2014 where he slipped. I thought the best thing that Rodgers could have done that day was substitute him, take him off at half time, because the second half became all about his personal redemption. It was shots from the edge of the box. he wanted that moment of redemption.
That said, but at the same time, if you compare him to some of the other players that you have in your list and the teams that most of those players played in, maybe Fowler to a slightly lesser degree, but the quality of the teams that those players played in versus what Gerrard played in and what he achieved with them, like he's looking at the stats, 5th highest goal scorer for a player in his position at Liverpool of all time.
Yeah.
And like a scorer of great goals, obviously,
and great moments,
great
as well.
moments, and dragging and like winning trophies at a time, helping Liverpool to win trophies. I mean, that's understating it. At a time when it seemed exceptionally unlikely.
Yeah. I mean, you are persuading me. I'm eminently persuaded on this point of dropping Fowler for Gerrard. But like you said, you had the graphic made. But yeah, I mean, I do take your point. And I think if Gerrard had gone to a club where he was playing with better players, I think we might have even seen true greatness from Gerrard. But there was that moment in 2005 where it looked like he was going to go to Chelsea,
right.
and he chose to stay at Liverpool. And it's counterintuitive for me to say this as a Liverpool fan, but I wonder, was that the right decision for him as a player? Like, I wonder, I wonder, did it say something about him as a player that he would rather be this big fish in this small pond rather than
at
go
that time,
and test himself, But yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, if I had 6. He's number 6, and he was
5.5.
He was pushing Fowler off, and Fowler was pushing him back. But I think the thing with Fowler is the reason I picked Fowler was, he was a natural finisher, and also if he had played in a great team, the things Fowler could have done, if that had been a serious Liverpool team, they were just such a team of underachievers. That team from the 90s, the early ones he played in weren't much good, but later on they had good players, and his link up with McManaman. I mean, they really should have delivered a lot more, but they just didn't come across as serious people who were serious about their business.
Huge amount of reaction to our viewers' top Liverpool players of all time. Keith Nevin has gone with Firmino. Some of these have a huge amount of recency bias. I'll put that out there before we begin. Number 5, Roberto Firmino. Number 4, John Barnes. Number 3, Ray Houghton. Number 2, Xabi Alonso. And number 1, Ronnie Whelan. I mean, I think that's a large recency and Irish bias about it, but it's...
But Ronnie Whelan makes it on the show us your medals argument alone. I mean,
See, who's the greatest Irish Liverpool player of all time? I mean, medals is clearly a part of it. Laura would be up there. Highway, by all accounts, I didn't see much of him, but by all accounts...
Yeah, Highway was great. I think Whelan, who else? Michael Robinson.
John Aldridge was short-lived, probably.
Yeah. I mean, Aldridge was just there for 2-3 seasons. In terms of influence on the team and medals won, I think Whelan.
Right.
Yeah.
Colin Farrell goes with Kenny Dalglish, Ian Rush, Stephen Gerrard, Alan Hansen and John Barnes. Don't know about the order on that. Whelan, Barnes, Gerrard, Carragher and Finnan. A couple of shots that we hadn't heard before from David Cusack there. Stevie G for David Coombs, Colin O'Connor, Xabi Alonso, Ian Rush, Kenny Dalglish, Robbie Fowler and Daniel Agger.
Right.
5 seconds of silence.
I know that's tongue in cheek. I suspect it's tongue in cheek. But Agger at one point I thought was going to be a great Liverpool captain. It ended really quickly with Agger, but I looked at him at one point and thought that's a future captain. He was great. Yeah.
I'm hoping it's tongue in cheek. Brandon Walsh goes with Gerrard, Barnes, Dalglish, Rush and Alonso. And Emma Carroll, who's in the box out there this morning, says Fowler, Gerrard, Rush, McManaman, who's not one we've seen elsewhere, and Xabi Alonso. Xabi Alonso is another one of those incredible footballers who, had he stayed, probably is the thing.
Yeah, and again, it was his relationship with Rafa Benitez soured. And this was sort of the 2009 team when they had that great midfield, with Mascherano and Gerrard and Sissoko, and I really thought that was the start of something. Like I thought, especially with the Champions League win, there was a few kind of lean years after that, but 2009 they really looked like a team. And then there was this talk that Rafa was was looking around for a replacement for Alonso, and it was clear they'd fallen out, and it was the end. It was the kind of start of the end for that what was a potentially great Liverpool team.
Yeah. I suspect that the reaction to this is going to continue over the course of the day, so keep an eye on your Twitter feed.
Oh, it's be staying off Twitter after that. I'll just block the conversation.